Welcome to my podcast, guys. If you are here to work on your relationship with your child, then you are for sure in the right space because you will always have to work on your relationship with yourself. And this is what I offer here on my podcast. So if you listen to my podcast and hear things that are not obviously related to your son, listen on, because whatever you improve in your relationship with yourself will automatically improve all of your relationships, including with your son. So welcome and enjoy. Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? Well, I hope. I had a conversation with one of my coaches the other day about food and loving myself. Because I'm on this journey to nourish myself better. I really like that word for food. Because in my whole life, I've really used food as comfort and not feeling my feelings. So now I'm on this journey to feel my feelings and not eat all of them. And to feel good and to feel like my body's my normal size and to really love myself with food and through food and by the choices I make. So I had this conversation with my coach, and she pointed out something that made me realize that I've actually come a really long way in this journey. Because I just realized what I used to do, let's say 3 years ago. My life consisted of like 6 meals a day, peanut butter sandwiches with jam, and I would have all the bread and sweets I wanted. Like, I was not too overweight, but I was 10-20 pounds over my usual weight. And the thing is, I really didn't have any time in my day where I wouldn't be either eating or thinking about food. So this is where I used to be before, like a few years ago. And now this Monday, I just did a 24-hour fast. Easily, joyfully, I did that. And I wouldn't have noticed it if I hadn't had that conversation with my coach. And because, if you're listening to this podcast, you might be like me and you might like to work on your life and, figure things out and like work on one thing at a time and, talk about your problem and solution and what should I do next, right? And be really into it and be really zoomed in. And when we are like that, we miss the bigger picture of how far we've come along. Right? Because I'm still working on it. I would like to be even better at it. I would like to figure out, what feeds my body even better, how not to crave sugar, I kind of stay in such a small zoom in place that I miss the progress that I've made. And why is this important? I think it's so important to acknowledge your progress. And I've heard people say that to me before, and I was like, yeah, great. Like, let's move on. Let's get to like the business. Let's get to how we get even better. And now, because I've kind of seen the effect of not doing it and doing it, I really appreciate the result that I get when I do it. Because it was almost jarred me to look at the facts. 3 years ago, on a regular Monday, I would have had breakfast right away when I got up with a coffee, and then I would have continued to have a snack or a meal every 2 hours, or a tea or a coffee, and it would go on all day until kids are in bed, and then I would have another snack. And that is not how I wanted to feed myself. It was just all that I knew, and I was kind of hooked on sugar, right? So I'm not judging myself back then. I have compassion for myself back then, right? And if you're doing that, I'm not judging you. And if you want to choose to do that for yourself, that might feel great for you, and there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just how I felt doing it. I didn't love. I didn't feel like I was doing a service to myself. So looking now at the day that happened this week, I loved giving my body the break from food, and it felt so amazing to just drink water all day. And I really I wasn't starving. I didn't have sugar cravings. It was so amazing to be able to do that for myself. So that's me coming a long way, and kind of not having the sugar cravings right now, right? And just really progressing. So here's why, right? The reason why it's so good for me to see that is so that I can think, so that I can kind of remind myself, oh, right, I am actually doing the things that I want to be doing. I am achieving the things that I want to be achieving. Like, I am becoming the person I want to become. But because when we're so zoomed in, we forget about that, right? We forget, why are we doing this? We forget what's the end goal, right? We might kind of get caught up in the details. And then, so I have a couple more examples of that in my own life, and I want you to think about that in your own life. For example, I thought about that me in tennis, right? So I started playing tennis 5 years ago. Well, actually, I played as a kid, but never really continued. But 5 years ago, I started taking lessons. And, you know, like me taking lessons every week for 5 years, I still see so much work that needs to be done, and I keep on working on it. But if I don't zoom out and look at the progress I've made, I might get really down on myself and be like, and not really have as much fun, because I'm not appreciating that I am better, that I've come a long way, and this is much more fun, and this is actually paying off. Because sometimes I don't feel like going to a lesson, and I feel like this is not going anywhere, right? So when I looked at my lesson and my tennis progress, when I started taking lessons, I couldn't even have a good have a good back and forth rally with a coach or a partner, anyone else. All my balls were flying all over the place. And now I can have a rally with my coach, an 80-ball rally. That's a long rally. And that is just there to remind my brain, like, hey, what you're doing is actually working. You are becoming that 3.0 player. You are acquiring skills that keep going. This is becoming a lot more fun, right? So zooming out gives me that perspective, like, oh, wow, I wanted to be a really good tennis player. I wanted to have a good rally, and here I am, right? So that just gives me, allows me to enjoy what I'm doing a lot more. Right? I'm like, oh, okay, I keep going. Like, I love it more. I'm like, I love that I take myself to lessons, and I love that and the same with food, right? Me enjoying this process of choosing to eat well, to nourish myself, allows me to enjoy it more, and therefore be even better at it, right? Be even better, continue progressing my tennis, continue feeding myself well, right? And relationships. I thought about relationships, right? So this podcast is called, Stop Fighting with Your Son. Again, I believe it applies to any relationship. And so just copy and paste to anything. So in relationships, here's what I love about this framework, right? I'm like, how do we measure this in relationships? And here's what I right away came up with based on my own experience from my relationships. I used to manipulate and really try to, not like direct other people's behavior on how I thought that they should behave, what I thought that they should do. It used to really bother me when they would do certain things. And that felt terrible and caused fights for me in my relationships. I caused them, right? And so that's what I used to do. And now more and more, right? Again, I'm saying this is like a progress, and this is like a percentage-wise growth, not a zero or nothing, like perfect game. And now I'm so much better at accepting other people as they are and making peace with them as they are and allowing them to be that way. It has allowed me to love them more, to have 90% less fights with them, my husband, my son, my mom, and my friends, right? It's just allowed me to drop into like, oh, that's what you're doing? Okay, no problem, right? And so allowing them just to do what they want and not trying to change them, that is like the ultimate place where I would want to be in my relationships. And so just seeing that, okay, like how can we measure it? By amount of fights. And definitely when I look at my life, the amount of fights in my life has almost completely diminished. Of course, there's things that come up and I learn from them and I move on. But I just love looking at it that way, right? And the same thing applies to myself, right? Like if I used to be super manipulative of myself and how I think I should behave. And that made me miserable. I do that a lot less now because I've become a lot more practiced at noticing, I am putting a condition on loving myself here. Maybe that doesn't serve me. Maybe I can take that condition off and still love myself. And do I actually want to do this, right? To evaluate it, right? So again, getting to that unconditional love for others and yourself, that means like, I'll still love you even if you do this thing, right? Just super simple things. And it's so great to practice that with others because controlling them doesn't work, right? So then you really come to a natural option of like, okay, I can't change it. I'm just going to let you do it, right? And so, again, zooming out of in your life, like a 10-year period, 20-year period, and seeing, wow, what did my relationship used to look like and where am I now? What does it look like now? And then seeing that progress and appreciating that progress and telling yourself, like teaching your brain that, hey, I did this, you did this, brain, we did this together. And keep going. You're doing great. And if if you want to get even better at it, let's keep going, right? And so again, that will allow you to enjoy that more, right? That will allow you to appreciate that, in fact, you have become that person that you wanted to become, right? With really great relationships. And then you get to think of yourself as this great wife, supporting, accepting wife, or as this really amazing daughter, right? Or a really good mom, right? Like a mom that you're proud to be, right? So that is the skill that I want you guys to practice, is zooming out and telling your brain that, hey, brain, look how far you've come and you did this. Keep going, you can do this. So again, like that is kind of like when people say, celebrate your wins, or really be proud of what you have accomplished. And for some reason, our brain doesn't naturally want to just do that, right? You'd think the brain would be all over it and it's like wants to feel great. But no, like if your brain's like my brain's on to the next problem. It's on to the next solution. It's like, yeah, but it's not good enough. Yeah, but it's not good enough. I've heard myself say it in so many situations. Yeah, but it's not good enough. And so that's why it is actually a skill to teach your brain to pause, even just for like 2 sentences, and say, yeah, you know what? I did this. I'm pretty good, right? That is a skill worth doing, just so that you can, why are we all doing this for, right? We just want to feel happy and be the best person we can be for everyone around us and for ourselves. And this skill literally takes you to that place. Like, I'm actually not that far off from where I wanted to be, right? So that is the skill that I am seeing in my life. I want you to practice that in your life. Drop me a line. I would love to hear your, zoom out stories. Like, where you used to be in a certain area, any area in your life? Where are you now, right? And what got you there, right? Another way to look at it is doing a success evaluation, right? I have this success. Let's say you have a monetary success. How did I get here, right? What thoughts was I thinking? What actions did I take? What did I have to believe about myself that brought me here? Who's responsible for this, right? And answering all of them in a way that kind of credits you and reminds you that you did this. You can do anything you want. So have a beautiful weekend, everyone. I love you all so much, and I will talk to you next week. Oh, and I just want to invite you again to, if you need any coaching on any of these topics that I'm talking about here, I would love to coach you. Just simply email me at Natalia@coachingnatalia.com and we'll set up a time. Talk to you soon. Bye.